I served my childhood friend homemade lasagna, and he's now suing me for attempted murder. The process server handed me the lawsuit at 9 a.m. on a Saturday while I was still in my pajamas. "Are you David Brennan?" he asked, and when I nodded, he pushed a thick envelope into my hands. "You've been served." I stood in my doorway, confused, opening the envelope to find legal documents claiming I'd attempted to murder my childhood friend, Leo Garrison, by serving him poisoned lasagna at my apartment 3 weeks ago. The claim demanded $2.5 million in damages for pain and suffering, medical expenses, and emotional trauma. I read the first page 3 times, my hands shaking, unable to process what I was seeing. Leo and I had been best friends since we were 7 years old, built tree houses together, shared everything. I'd cooked him dinner to celebrate his visit to town after 3 years apart, the same lasagna recipe my mom had taught me. He'd gotten food poisoning and spent a night in the hospital, which I'd felt terrible about. But attempted murder? The accusation was insane. I called Leo immediately, my anger rising with each ring, but his number went straight to voicemail. "What the hell is this lawsuit about?" I shouted into the recording. "Call me back right now and explain why you're accusing me of trying to kill you." I spent the rest of Saturday reading through the entire lawsuit, which was 43 pages of legal language describing how I'd allegedly planned to murder Leo for reasons the document kept vague. The claim stated I'd knowingly and intentionally contaminated food with harmful bacteria and served it with malicious intent to cause grievous bodily harm or death. There were medical records attached showing Leo had been hospitalized for severe food poisoning, treated for salmonella, and suffered from dehydration and gastric distress. The bills totaled almost $15,000 for his overnight stay and treatment, but the lawsuit went beyond medical costs, claiming I'd caused Leo to miss work, suffer ongoing digestive issues, and experience PTSD from nearly dying at his childhood friend's dinner table. I kept looking for any explanation of why I'd supposedly want to hurt him, but the lawsuit offered nothing concrete beyond vague references to long-standing personal grievances and financial motivations. I had no grievances with Leo and no financial motivation to hurt anyone. This made absolutely no sense. I tried calling him 6 more times throughout the day, leaving increasingly desperate messages asking him to explain what was happening. Sunday morning, I drove to my parents' house needing to tell someone what was happening. My mom answered the door in her gardening clothes, immediately seeing something was wrong from my expression. "What happened?" I showed her the lawsuit, watching her face go from confusion to shock to anger as she read. "This is ridiculous," she said firmly. "You made that lasagna from my recipe. There's nothing wrong with it. We've been making it for 20 years. My dad came in from the garage and read the documents, his jaw clenching tighter with each page. "You need a lawyer," he said. "This is serious. An attempted murder accusation could destroy your career, even if it's completely false." He was right. I worked as a senior accountant at a firm that valued reputation above everything. If clients found out I was being sued for attempted murder, they'd drop me immediately regardless of the truth. My dad called his attorney friend who did corporate law and explained the situation. The attorney recommended someone named Patricia Valdez, who specialized in civil defense and defamation cases. "Call her first thing Monday morning," my dad said, writing down her number. "Don't talk to Leo or anyone else about this without legal advice." I barely slept Sunday night, my mind racing through every moment of that dinner 3 weeks ago. I'd bought all the ingredients fresh from the grocery store that afternoon, ground beef from the butcher counter, ricotta and mozzarella from the dairy section, jarred tomato sauce, fresh pasta sheets. I'd cooked everything thoroughly, baking the lasagna at 375 degrees for 45 minutes until the cheese was perfectly browned. Leo had eaten 2 large servings, complimenting the food repeatedly, saying it was even better than he remembered. We'd drunk wine, laughed about old times, caught up on life. Everything had been normal and good until he started feeling sick around 8:30. I'd driven him to the hospital immediately, waited for hours to make sure he was okay. The doctors said it was food poisoning, probably from undercooked meat or contaminated ingredients. I'd felt guilty and apologized profusely, offering to pay his medical bills. Leo had texted me from the hospital saying it wasn't my fault, that these things happen, not to worry about it. 2 days later, he'd texted again saying he was feeling better and thanks for taking care of him. And now, 3 weeks later, he was suing me for attempted murder. None of it made sense. Monday morning, I called Patricia Valdez at 8 a.m. sharp. Her secretary scheduled me for 10:30 that same morning, saying Ms. Valdez had reviewed the lawsuit documents I'd emailed over and wanted to discuss the case immediately. I drove to her downtown office, a sleek, modern building with glass walls and expensive furniture in the waiting room. Patricia turned out to be a woman in her late 40s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. "This is one of the strangest lawsuits I've seen in 15 years of practice," she said, after we'd exchanged greetings. "Attempted murder claims in civil court are extremely rare because they require proving intent, which is nearly impossible. Usually these cases involve clear evidence of poisoning, someone putting arsenic in coffee, that kind of thing. Your situation involves alleged food poisoning from a home-cooked meal, which happens accidentally all the time." She leaned forward, her expression serious. "The question is why Leo is claiming this was intentional. What possible motive could you have for wanting to harm him?" I spread my hands helplessly. "None. We've been friends since childhood. I haven't seen him in 3 years, but we stayed in touch through texts and social media. There's no bad blood between us." Patricia pulled out a legal pad and started taking notes. "Walk me through everything about that evening. What time did Leo arrive? What exactly did you serve? How long between when he ate and when he got sick? What happened at the hospital? Any conversations after he was released?" I recounted every detail I could remember. Leo arriving at 6:35 p.m., us eating around 6:45, him starting to feel ill about 2 hours later, the drive to the hospital, the overnight stay, the doctors saying it was likely salmonella from undercooked meat, the texts afterward where Leo said it wasn't my fault. Patricia's pen stopped moving when I mentioned those texts. "You still have those messages?" I pulled out my phone immediately, scrolling back to find them. But my text thread with Leo had been deleted. I stared at my phone in confusion. They were here. I know they were. He texted me from the hospital saying not to feel bad, and again 2 days later saying he was recovering fine. Patricia's expression grew more serious. "Did you delete those texts?" I shook my head emphatically. "No, I would never delete them. I don't understand where they went." Patricia made a note. "Either your phone glitched, which seems unlikely, or someone with access to your phone deleted them. Those texts would have been crucial evidence showing Leo didn't initially blame you." I tried to remember if I'd left my phone unattended anywhere, but came up blank. "Leo's the only person who's been to my apartment recently, but he was sick the whole time he was there. He didn't have access to my phone." Patricia tapped her pen against her notepad. "Let's focus on what we can prove. Do you have receipts for the ingredients you bought that day?" I nodded. "I used my credit card at Morrison's Market. The receipt should be in my email, or I can get a copy from the store." Patricia smiled slightly. "Good. That's a start. We'll also need to inspect your kitchen, document your food storage and preparation practices, possibly hire a food safety expert to testify that you followed proper cooking procedures. The burden of proof is on Leo to show you intentionally poisoned him, which will be extremely difficult. But we need to be proactive in building your defense, because the accusation alone can be damaging." She explained that attempted murder accusations, even in civil court, could trigger criminal investigations. If the prosecutor's office got wind of this lawsuit, they might look into whether criminal charges were warranted. "We need to shut this down fast," Patricia said. "I'm going to file a motion to dismiss based on lack of evidence, and we'll simultaneously gather everything we can to prove this was accidental food poisoning, not attempted murder." I left Patricia's office feeling slightly better but still deeply unsettled. The lawsuit was public record, which meant anyone could find it. I thought about my job, my reputation, my life being destroyed by a false accusation. That afternoon, I went to Morrison's Market and asked the customer service desk for a copy of my receipt from 3 weeks ago. The manager pulled it up in their system and printed it out. Ground beef, ricotta cheese, mozzarella, pasta, tomato sauce, garlic, Italian seasoning, and a bottle of wine. Everything normal and ordinary. I took the receipt to Patricia's office, where she made copies for our files. "I'm also going to subpoena Leo's medical records," she said. "We need to see exactly what the doctors found and whether there's any evidence suggesting intentional poisoning versus accidental contamination." Over the next week, Patricia filed multiple motions. A motion to dismiss the case, a motion for sanctions against Leo's attorney for filing a frivolous lawsuit, and a countersuit for defamation and emotional distress. "We're going on offense," Patricia explained. "If Leo wants to play hardball, we'll show him that false accusations have consequences." I approved everything, angry now instead of just confused. Leo was trying to destroy my life over a dinner that had gone wrong through no fault of my own. 2 weeks after being served, I got a call from my boss asking me to come to his office. My stomach sank as I walked down the hallway, knowing this had to be about the lawsuit. Sure enough, Richard sat behind his desk with a printed copy of the legal filing in front of him. "David, I need you to explain this," he said, gesturing at the papers. "I got a call this morning from a client asking if we employ someone being sued for attempted murder." Obviously, I was shocked. I sat down and explained the entire situation. Childhood friend, dinner invitation, food poisoning, baseless lawsuit. Richard listened carefully, his expression neutral. "I believe you," he said finally. "But perception matters in this business. Our clients need to trust us with their most sensitive financial information. Having someone on staff accused of attempted murder, even falsely, creates liability concerns." My throat tightened. "Are you firing me?" Richard shook his head. "Not yet, but I'm putting you on administrative leave until this is resolved. Full pay, full benefits, but you can't come into the office or interact with clients until the lawsuit is dismissed or settled. I'm sorry, David, but I have to protect the firm." I understood his position, even as I hated it. I cleaned out my desk that afternoon, colleagues whispering and staring as I carried my box of belongings to the car. Administrative leave meant sitting at home with nothing to do except obsess over the lawsuit. I spent hours Googling Leo's name, trying to understand why he'd turned on me so completely. His social media showed nothing unusual: posts about work achievements, photos of business trips, complaints about airline delays, nothing suggesting financial problems or personal crises that might explain desperate behavior. I tried calling him again, leaving a message saying I just wanted to understand why he was doing this. No response. A week into my forced leave, Patricia called with news. I got Leo's medical records from the hospital. The tox screen they ran showed salmonella poisoning, consistent with contaminated meat or eggs. There's no evidence of any other substances, no arsenic or rat poison or anything that would indicate intentional poisoning. The doctor's notes specifically say, "Likely foodborne illness from undercooked meat. This is good for us." I felt a surge of relief. "So the case should be dismissed?" Patricia hesitated. "Not necessarily. Leo's attorney will argue that you intentionally used contaminated meat, that you knowingly purchased bad ingredients to make him sick. It's a stretch, but not impossible to argue. We need more evidence on our side." That evening, I decided to visit Morrison's Market again, this time to speak with the butcher who'd sold me the ground beef. I found him working behind the meat counter, a middle-aged man with a friendly face who didn't recognize me at first. I explained the situation, that I'd bought beef 3 weeks ago that might have been contaminated, leading to food poisoning. His expression changed immediately. "You're the guy," he said. "Someone already came asking about that purchase. Said they were investigating a poisoning case." My heart started racing. "Who came asking?" The butcher shrugged. "Didn't give a name. Just said they were looking into meat I sold on that specific date. I told them the same thing I'll tell you. All our meat is USDA inspected and handled according to health department regulations. We've never had a contamination issue in 12 years. If someone got sick from our meat, it was probably from improper cooking or storage on their end." I asked if he remembered selling me the beef specifically, but he shook his head. "I sell hundreds of pounds a week. Can't remember individual sales, but our records show the batch that day was fine. No other complaints, no recalls, nothing." I thanked him and left, my mind spinning. Who had come asking about the meat? Leo's attorney building their case? Or someone else? I called Patricia immediately and told her about the butcher's comment. She went quiet for a moment. "That's concerning. Defense attorneys don't usually investigate that thoroughly for a civil case with shaky evidence. They typically just rely on the plaintiff's testimony and medical records. Someone doing legwork suggests they think they have a real case." She paused. "David, I need to ask you directly. Is there any reason Leo might genuinely believe you tried to hurt him? Any argument you forgot about? Any incident that could be misinterpreted?" I searched my memory desperately. "No, nothing. We haven't even seen each other in 3 years. Our last interaction before this dinner was texting about fantasy football last season." Everything was normal and friendly. Patricia sighed. Then, we're missing something. People don't just randomly accuse childhood friends of attempted murder for no reason. There's a motive here we haven't uncovered yet. She said she was going to hire a private investigator to look into Leo's recent activities, financial status, and personal life. If he's desperate for money or being pressured by someone, that could explain a fraudulent lawsuit. I authorized the expense, knowing my savings would take a hit, but having no choice. The private investigator, a former police detective named Raymond Cole, called me 3 days later with preliminary findings. Your friend Leo is in serious financial trouble, Raymond said without preamble. He's got over $200,000 in debt, credit cards, personal loans, a car loan on a luxury vehicle he can't afford. His pharmaceutical sales job pays well, but he's been spending beyond his means for years. 6 months ago, he got into legal trouble for some kind of sales fraud at work. His company didn't press charges, but they fired him. He's been working freelance sales gigs since then, barely making ends meet. My mind reeled. Leo hadn't mentioned any of this at dinner. He told me work was great, that he'd just closed a huge deal. Raymond made a noise that might have been a laugh. He lied. There's more. Leo's been seeing a personal injury attorney named Gordon Finch for the past 2 months. Finch specializes in maximizing settlement payouts and has a reputation for taking on questionable cases if the potential payout is big enough. He works on contingency, taking 40% of whatever settlement or judgment he wins. Suddenly, the lawsuit made horrible sense. Leo was desperate for money and had found a lawyer willing to manufacture a case against me. I met with Patricia the next day to share Raymond's findings. She listened carefully, taking notes and nodding. This gives us the motive we were looking for. Leo saw an opportunity to make money off an accidental food poisoning incident. He hired an aggressive attorney who convinced him they could frame it as attempted murder and scare you into a settlement. Patricia leaned back in her chair. The good news is, this makes the case much weaker. We can show Leo has a clear financial motivation to lie. The bad news is that doesn't automatically get the case dismissed. We still need to prove the poisoning was accidental and that Leo's claims are fabricated. She pulled out a folder. I want to depose Leo, get him under oath and ask about his financial situation, his conversations with Gordon Finch and what happened that night. If he's lying, depositions often expose the truth. I agreed immediately. The thought of confronting Leo face to face was terrifying, but also necessary. We scheduled the deposition for 2 weeks out, giving Patricia time to prepare questions and gather more evidence. In the meantime, Raymond continued investigating, looking into Gordon Finch's history and whether he'd tried similar cases before. Raymond called a week before the scheduled deposition with disturbing news. Gordon Finch has a pattern. Over the past 5 years, he's filed at least 12 lawsuits involving alleged food poisoning or contamination at private residences. Most settled out of court for $50,000 to $100,000. Only one went to trial, and Finch lost, but the defendant had already spent over $200,000 on legal fees defending themselves. Raymond's tone was grim. This is Finch's business model. Find desperate clients with legitimate food poisoning cases, convince them to claim it was intentional, and pressure defendants into settling to avoid the cost and reputation damage of a trial. He's essentially running an extortion scheme using the legal system. I felt sick. Can we prove this? Raymond hesitated. Proving it is hard. Each case is technically legitimate. Someone really did get food poisoning. Whether it was intentional is nearly impossible to prove either way. That ambiguity is what Finch exploits. He bets that defendants will settle rather than risk their reputations and bank accounts on a trial. Patricia, when I told her, looked thoughtful. This actually helps us. If we can show a pattern of Finch filing similar cases, we can argue this is a frivolous lawsuit designed to extort settlement money. Judges don't like attorneys who abuse the court system. The deposition took place in a conference room at Gordon Finch's law office downtown. I arrived with Patricia, my stomach churning with anxiety about seeing Leo again. He sat at the far end of the conference table with Finch beside him, refusing to make eye contact. Leo looked thinner than I remembered, with dark circles under his eyes and a nervous energy in how he fidgeted with his pen. Finch was a large man in an expensive suit, his expression aggressive and condescending. A court reporter sat ready to transcribe everything. Patricia started with basic questions: Leo's full name, address, employment history. Then she moved to the evening in question. Mr. Garrison, you've known David Brennan since childhood, correct? Leo nodded. Since we were 7, Patricia continued. And would you characterize your relationship with him as friendly up until the evening of the alleged poisoning? Leo hesitated, glancing at Finch, who gave a slight nod. We were friends, yes, but there were tensions. This was news to me. Patricia pounced on it. What tensions? Leo shifted in his seat. David always resented my success. I made more money than him, had a better car, traveled more. He was jealous. I felt my face flush with anger, but Patricia squeezed my arm under the table, warning me to stay quiet. Can you provide specific examples of David expressing this alleged jealousy? Leo fumbled for words. He'd make comments sometimes, about my job being easier than his, or how pharmaceutical sales was just schmoozing clients while he did real work with numbers. Patricia made a note. When did David last make such a comment? Leo thought. I don't remember exactly. Maybe a year ago? In a text? Patricia looked up sharply. Do you still have that text? Leo shook his head. I got a new phone and didn't transfer old messages. Patricia let that sit for a moment. So you have no evidence of these alleged comments? Finch interrupted. Objection. Argumentative. Patricia smiled slightly. Let me rephrase. Mr. Garrison, can you produce any documentation, texts, emails, social media messages, showing David expressed jealousy or resentment toward you? Leo shook his head again. Patricia moved on. You claim David invited you to dinner with the intent to poison you. Why would he do that? Leo had clearly been coached for this. Because I was successful, and he wanted to eliminate a reminder of his own failures. Plus, I'd recently started dating his ex-girlfriend from college. He was angry about that. This was the first I'd heard about Leo dating any ex of mine. Patricia glanced at me, and I shook my head slightly. It wasn't true. Patricia continued. Which ex-girlfriend? Leo named someone I'd barely dated for 2 months in sophomore year, 8 years ago. David was obsessed with her. When he found out I was seeing her, he started planning revenge. Patricia's voice stayed calm. When did David find out you were dating this woman? Leo said. About a month before the dinner. Patricia made another note. And how did he find out? Leo hesitated. I told him. In a text. Patricia leaned forward. Can you produce this text? Leo's face reddened. No. Like I said, new phone. Patricia's tone sharpened. Mr. Garrison, you've testified about several text conversations with David that supposedly show motive for attempted murder, yet you cannot produce a single one of these texts. Isn't it true that these conversations never happened? Finch stood up. This is harassment. My client has answered your questions. Patricia didn't back down. Your client has made serious allegations that could destroy David's career and reputation. I'm entitled to examine the evidence. The deposition continued for another hour, with Patricia systematically dismantling Leo's story, exposing contradictions and lack of evidence. The most revealing moment came when Patricia asked about Leo's financial situation. Mr. Garrison, how much debt are you currently carrying? Finch objected immediately. Relevance? Patricia turned to him. Your client is suing for $2.5 million. His financial motivation to fabricate this claim is absolutely relevant. The court reporter noted the objection, but Patricia pressed forward. Mr. Garrison, are you currently employed? Leo admitted he was working freelance sales. And how much do you earn from that work? Leo mumbled something about it varying month to month. Patricia produced documents Raymond had obtained. According to tax records, you earned $23,000 last year. Is that correct? Leo's face went pale. That was a bad year, Patricia continued relentlessly. You were fired from Apex Pharmaceuticals 6 months ago for fraudulent sales practices, weren't you? Leo exploded. That was a misunderstanding. The company overreacted. Finch tried to calm his client, but the damage was done. Leo had lost his composure, and his desperation was now on the record. Patricia asked a few more questions about Leo's conversations with Finch, establishing that Finch had approached Leo about filing the lawsuit, not the other way around. By the time the deposition ended, Leo's credibility was shattered. Outside the conference room, Patricia was cautiously optimistic. That went better than I expected. Leo contradicted himself multiple times, couldn't produce evidence for any of his claims, and admitted he's in severe financial distress. Combined with Finch's history of similar cases, we have a strong argument that this is a frivolous lawsuit. She said she'd file an amended motion to dismiss citing the deposition testimony. I'm also going to report Finch to the State Bar Association. What he's doing borders on legal malpractice and potential fraud. I felt hope for the first time in weeks. Maybe this nightmare would end soon, but that hope was short-lived. 2 days after the deposition, I received a letter from the district attorney's office. A prosecutor named Angela Reeves wanted to interview me about allegations of attempted murder via food poisoning. Patricia had warned this might happen, but seeing it in writing made my blood run cold. A civil lawsuit was one thing. A criminal investigation was another level entirely. If the DA decided to press charges, I could face prison time, not just money damages. This had escalated beyond anything I'd imagined. Patricia arranged for us to meet with Angela Reeves at the DA's office the following week. "You're not required to answer questions without immunity," Patricia explained, "but refusing to cooperate can make you look guilty. I think our best approach is to be completely transparent, show that you have nothing to hide, and present all the evidence that this was accidental food poisoning, not attempted murder." I trusted Patricia's judgment, though the prospect of being interrogated by a prosecutor terrified me. Angela Reeves turned out to be a sharp-eyed woman in her 30s who got straight to business. "Mr. Brennan, I'm investigating Leo Garrison's allegations that you intentionally poisoned him. I've reviewed the civil lawsuit and the deposition transcript. I want to hear your version of events." I walked her through everything: the dinner invitation, the cooking process, Leo getting sick, the hospital visit. I showed her the grocery receipt, explained my cooking methods, and described how I'd felt terrible about Leo getting food poisoning. Angela listened without interrupting, taking notes occasionally. When I finished, she asked, "Why do you think Mr. Garrison is accusing you of attempted murder?" I explained about Leo's financial troubles, his debt, and Gordon Finch's history of similar cases. "This is about money, not justice." Angela reviewed her notes for a few minutes, then looked up. "I'm inclined to agree with you. Nothing in the medical evidence suggests intentional poisoning. The salmonella contamination is consistent with accidental foodborne illness, and Mr. Garrison's financial motive to fabricate these claims is compelling." She closed her file. "I'm not going to pursue criminal charges. This appears to be a civil dispute, not a criminal matter. However, I am going to send a letter to Gordon Finch's office warning him that filing false police reports or encouraging clients to make false statements to law enforcement can result in criminal charges against the attorney. Sometimes lawyers like Finch need a reminder that there are consequences for abusing the legal system." I nearly collapsed with relief. No criminal charges meant my life wasn't completely destroyed. I still had to deal with the civil lawsuit, but at least I wouldn't be facing prison. Patricia thanked Angela for her thoroughness, and we left the DA's office feeling lighter than we had in weeks. Outside on the courthouse steps, Patricia said, "This is the turning point. With the DA declining to prosecute, the civil case becomes much weaker. No jury is going to believe you attempted murder when the prosecutor investigated and found nothing criminal." 2 weeks later, Patricia filed a comprehensive motion to dismiss the lawsuit, attaching the deposition transcript, the DA's decision not to prosecute, Raymond's investigative report on Finch's pattern of similar cases, and affidavits from the butcher shop and hospital staff. The motion was 53 pages of devastating evidence against Leo's claims. We also filed a formal complaint with the State Bar Association detailing Finch's pattern of filing questionable food poisoning lawsuits and requesting an investigation into his practices. "Now we wait," Patricia said. "The judge has 60 days to rule on our motion." Those 60 days felt like an eternity. I remained on administrative leave from work, unable to move forward with my life while the lawsuit hung over me. I spent most days at home, watching Netflix and trying not to obsess over legal documents. My parents called daily to check on me. My dad kept offering to help pay legal fees, but I'd already spent over $40,000 defending myself. Patricia was worth every penny, but the financial burden was crushing. I thought about Leo constantly, trying to understand how our friendship had ended here. Had he really been that desperate for money? Or had Finch manipulated him, convincing him that I'd intentionally hurt him? Either way, the betrayal cut deep. 6 weeks after filing the motion to dismiss, Patricia called with news. "The judge granted our motion. Case dismissed with prejudice, meaning Leo can't refile." The judge was scathing in his ruling, saying the lawsuit lacked merit, was filed for improper financial motives, and wasted court resources. He also ordered Leo and Gordon Finch to pay your legal fees under sanctions for filing a frivolous lawsuit. I couldn't speak for a moment, overwhelmed by relief and vindication. It's over? Patricia's voice was warm. It's over. You're free and clear. The dismissal is public record, so anyone who saw the initial lawsuit will also see it was thrown out as baseless. Your reputation should recover quickly. She said, the sanctions order meant Leo and Finch owed me approximately $43,000 in legal fees. Collecting might be difficult given Leo's financial situation, but we'll pursue it, and the Bar Association is moving forward with their investigation into Finch. This case, combined with the others Raymond found, gives them strong grounds for disciplinary action, possibly suspension or disbarment. I thanked Patricia profusely, my voice breaking with emotion. After 9 weeks of hell, justice had finally prevailed. I called my parents immediately to share the news. My mom cried with relief, and my dad kept saying, I knew it. I knew the truth would come out. I returned to work the following Monday. My administrative leave officially ended. Richard called me into his office first thing. I saw the dismissal order, he said, smiling. Welcome back, David. I never doubted you, and I apologize for the leave, but we had to be cautious. I understood and told him so. My colleagues welcomed me back warmly, several apologizing for believing the initial accusations. One coworker admitted she'd Googled my name during the lawsuit and seen the attempted murder claim, which had scared her. But then I thought about it and realized you'd never hurt anyone, she said. I'm glad the truth came out. Rebuilding my reputation took time, but the official dismissal helped immensely. Clients who'd pulled back during the lawsuit slowly returned. Life gradually returned to normal, though I remained wary of trusting people too easily. The experience had taught me that even childhood friends could betray you under the right circumstances. I never heard from Leo directly. He never apologized or explained himself. Patricia's office sent collection letters trying to recover the legal fees, but Leo apparently had no assets to seize. He'd probably file for bankruptcy to discharge the debt. Finch faced a Bar Association hearing 3 months later and received a 6-month suspension from practicing law. Not enough, in my opinion, but at least it was something. 6 months after the lawsuit was dismissed, I was at Morrison's Market buying groceries when I ran into Leo in the produce section. We made eye contact across a display of apples, and for a moment, neither of us moved. Leo looked terrible, thinner, older, defeated. He approached me hesitantly. David, He stopped, unable to finish. I waited, giving him space to either apologize or walk away. I'm sorry, he finally said, his voice barely audible. I was desperate. Finch convinced me you'd settle quickly and we'd split the money. He said these cases always settle. I never thought it would go so far. I stared at him, feeling anger and pity in equal measure. You accused me of attempted murder, Leo. You tried to destroy my life over money. Leo's eyes filled with tears. I know. I've lost everything. My career, my friends, my self-respect. Filing for bankruptcy next week. Finch is getting suspended and blamed me for his problems. Everyone knows what I did. He wiped his eyes roughly. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. You were a good friend, and I betrayed you for money I never even got. We stood there in the grocery store, years of friendship reduced to this awkward, painful moment. Part of me wanted to yell, to make him understand the hell he'd put me through. But looking at him, broken and desperate, I just felt tired. I can't forgive you right now, I said finally. Maybe someday, but not now. What you did was unforgivable. Leo nodded, accepting the verdict. I understand. For what it's worth, the lasagna was really good. I got sick from food poisoning. Not anything you did wrong. The doctors told me that, but Finch convinced me to ignore it. He started to say something else, then thought better of it, and walked away, his cart empty. I watched him go, feeling no satisfaction in his downfall. The whole situation had been a waste of friendship, time, money, and trust. I finished my shopping and drove home, thinking about how one dinner had unraveled everything. That evening, I called my mom and told her about running into Leo. Do you think you'll ever forgive him? She asked. I thought about it. I don't know. Right now, I'm just glad it's over and I can move forward. My mom was quiet for a moment. Your dad and I are proud of how you handled everything. You didn't give up or give in. You fought for the truth. That meant more to me than she probably realized. I'd learned a hard lesson about betrayal, but I'd also learned I was stronger than I thought, capable of fighting back against false accusations and winning. A year after the lawsuit was dismissed, life had returned to something resembling normal. I'd been promoted at work, my reputation fully restored. I'd started dating someone I met through friends, taking things slowly and being more cautious about trust. Patricia Valdez and I stayed in touch, and she occasionally referred other victims of frivolous lawsuits to me for advice and emotional support. Raymond Cole sent me updates on Gordon Finch, who'd been permanently disbarred after the Bar Association found evidence of 12 similar fraudulent cases. Several of Finch's former clients had come forward, admitting he'd coached them to lie, just like Leo. 3 faced perjury charges. The legal system had finally caught up to Finch's scheme, though not before he'd destroyed multiple lives and reputations. I sometimes thought about that dinner, wondering if I could have done anything differently. Made the lasagna differently, cooked the meat more thoroughly, checked the expiration dates more carefully. But Patricia had reminded me that food poisoning happens despite best efforts, and I couldn't have predicted Leo's desperate betrayal. The experience had changed me, made me more cynical perhaps, but also more resilient. I'd survived false accusations, a public legal battle, and the loss of a lifelong friendship, and emerged stronger on the other side. Sometimes that's all you can do: survive, fight back, and refuse to let liars destroy your life. The truth had won eventually, as it usually does when you have the courage to defend it. I'd never make lasagna again, though. Some recipes carry too many bad memories, no matter how good they once tasted. If you enjoyed this, you'll definitely want to see the next ones too. So subscribe now and let me know your take in the comments.